Well, thank you all for coming. We're very excited to have you here. Just to give you a little background on myself, I went to Western Michigan University. I got my undergraduate in psych, and then I got my graduate degree in education counseling. Throughout that whole period, I was an RA for 4 years. I was an assistant hall director for 2, and then I was a graduate hall director for 1. I got my job here in 2013, and I've been the director here since then. So housing is my life. Housing is my passion. I'm really proud of the work we do here, and I'm very proud of the people that are in our department and the things that they've been doing for students here. And so I'm looking forward to share those things with you today. So I am going to bring up my presentation here. I'm going to share my screen. Share. Okay. Is this okay? Brandy, can you see this? Can anybody see this?
All good.
All good. Very good. Okay. Okay, so to start, we've already introduced these people. So let's just get started quickly with how you would begin your experience here at CCS. So the current application process that we use is through a service called Roomchoice. The address for Roomchoice is ccshousing.roomchoice.com. To back up first, if you are a prospective student, in terms of steps along the timeline, you would apply and be admitted to CCS. You have already paid your $250 reservation fee. Is it Brandy? Do you know what that's called? The $250. I don't know what that fee is.
The enrollment deposit.
Enrollment deposit. Thank you so much. Yep. Very good. Okay, so you've paid your $250 enrollment deposit, and so now you'd like to sign up for housing. So you would type in this website, and what you will be greeted by first is it'll ask for your name, your cell phone, your email, and your gender. We would prefer the gender space to be more inclusive than it is. We've been trying to work with Roomchoice to solve that challenge. We have not yet been successful. And so where it stands now, basically the way that I've tried to explain to people is it's more of a room type selection than it would be to identify your gender. When you get deeper into the application, we have places where you can be more, you can explain to us more about how you identify and who you are in the demographics page. So once you've done that, you'll then move on to our selection page, which basically is like selecting a seat on an airline. You will see all of the empty beds that we have available. And so let's say you're looking at room 653 in the Taubman Center, and 2 of those beds are already taken by somebody else. What you'll be able to do is you'll see the empty bed, and then you'll be able to roll your mouse over the other 2 students who are placed, and you'll be able to see their demographic information. It'll talk, we ask questions like, are you an early to bed, early to rise kind of person? What do you like to do on the weekends? Do you like to share your items? How do you feel about guests? What are your volume levels? Those types of things that we find to be pertinent to, harmonious roommate living. Those are the type of information that we make public. We do not make your entire demographic page public. Only a few things that we've hand selected that we think are appropriate to share with other people when you are making your decision. So you'll basically be able to shop for your roommates based on demographics.
Hey, Ryan, I want to pop in really quickly and
sure.
That you're still on the first slide. I think you may, I don't know if you tracked, there you go.
What did I do? Oh, I didn't. So you can see Roomchoice now?
Now we can, yep.
Oh, great, okay. Okay, so yeah, so you'll be able to choose your bed, you'll see those preferences. And then once you've selected your bed, you'll move on to the large demographic page that I've been talking about earlier. That's where you would fill in your, let's see, all of the demographics that I talked about. It'll ask you about allergies. It'll ask you about emergency contacts, the things that you would assume that housing would want and need to know about you. That's where you answer those questions. Next, you would be prompted to sign the housing agreement. Once you've completed that step, it'll ask to make your $300 housing deposit, as well as your $20 room choice fee. And then there's a couple processing fees. So I think the grand total comes out to something like $332, if my memory serves correctly. So to explain those payments real quick, the $300 is not a fee. It is a $300 out of the eventual dollar amount that you will pay for housing. So let's say it's $3,700 for the entire semester. When you go on August 1st to make your payment, you will only see a charge of $3,400 because you've already submitted $300 for your first housing payment. So it's not a fee, it's just beginning your housing payment. That fee is refundable up until August 1st, or if a bed is not available by the time school begins. Currently, there are still plenty of beds available for incoming students, particularly in the Taubman Center. So there's no worry about that as of yet, but it is refundable up until August 1st. The $20 fee is a room choice fee. That's how Room Choice makes their money. Those dollars are non-refundable. Also, the processing fees are not refundable as well. Okay. So I've switched to living on campus. Can you see this, Brandy? I want to make sure it's
perfect. Thanks, Ryan.
It's perfect. Great. Okay. Very good. So okay, so let's talk briefly about what living on campus would be like. We have two buildings on campus. One is the Art Center building. That is a more traditional, like, apartment style. So for an incoming student, we would have a 4-person space and a 6-person space. In the 4-person space, there will be 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, and a kitchen and a living room space per person. I'm sorry, not per person, for that unit. So the kitchen and the bathroom would be private to those 4 people in the room. The 6-person rooms are 3 bedroom, so 2 people to a bedroom, a living room, a kitchen, and 2 private bathrooms. So you would share a bathroom with 2 others in the 6-person spaces. The Art Center building, it doesn't have as much public space as the Taubman Center does, but there is some study space on the ground floor. And there's also like a larger television area for students to use. We have laundry services every other floor in that building, which will be free for student use for the 22 and 23 school year. So that's a very exciting thing that was kind of born in COVID and decided to maintain through COVID. So laundry will be free. There is also both Ethernet and Wi-Fi in all spaces in that building for students to use. So that would be the Art Center building. The Taubman Center is a more traditional dormitory style, which is the vast majority of the rooms over there are 3-person units. They're almost 500 square feet. It's 1 large room for 3 students and 1 private bathroom. There is no kitchen space there. It's not fire rated for that. So that's more of like a microwave and fridge type situation for food for students. The way that the Taubman is organized is it is a public space surrounded by all of the residential spaces. So essentially, there is soft seating. So there's TVs on each floor that students can use with couches and chairs and whatnot. And then there is a workspace on each floor that students are able to use. And then each floor has something unique. So on the 8th floor, there's a workout space. On the 10th floor, there's a conference space. On I think the 7th floor, there is a movie room. There's also a pool and ping pong space. So a lot of different options in the Taubman Center. Also in the Taubman Center, there is a cafeteria on the 2nd floor. And living in the Taubman Center, there is a required meal plan. The meal plan is not required for the Art Center building. Okay, so in terms of our websites on campus, we have, so this is our collegeforcreativesites.edu website. And if you go to Life at CCS and you go to Housing, you can find our different policies there. The real big policy is called Housing Information. That has not been updated yet for the 22-23 school year, But in there, you'd be able to get a sense of what our policies are. It'll talk about inventories of each of these spaces. It'll talk about, here are some suggestions of what we think you should bring. Here are some things we suggest that you not bring, whether it be either by policy or just by, here's our experience with this concept. So that's a really good resource for students who are starting to think about what it would be like to live on campus. The one thing I will say before I forget is, in both the Art Center building and the Taubman Center, we do not provide desks inside the rooms. Instead, we provide space for students to bring their own. The public spaces, the public workspace in both the ACB and each of the floors on the Taubman Center, we provide a lot of workspace for students to do that. We find that each department has different needs in terms of what a student's desk requirements would be. So rather than us guessing wrong, we just don't provide it and we leave space for students to do that. Also on this page, you'll be able to find our emotional support animal policy. If you have an emotional support animal that was prescribed by your doctor, you can submit your doctor's note as well as vaccination records, and we can approve that animal to live on campus. We have our gender neutral housing policy. What that means is we have a policy where students are able to create a room in which gender is not a focal point for placement. So essentially what we find most students use this for is a safe space for students who do not identify as either male or female, or don't identify how they did at birth, or whatever their needs are. We do have, just male and female friends who choose to cohabitate and things work out great. But those are things that a group of people would need to create and talk with me about. You would never accidentally find yourself in a gender neutral housing space. Those are locked off and I place students in there. But if that's something you're interested in, please make sure you email me and we can talk about your needs and how we can address them. Okay. The spot here about off-campus housing, CCS does not offer any type of off-campus housing, nor do we make recommendations. However, we do have information on this site that helps you search within the area. And we also have some informational sites that help teach you how to make good decisions in terms of what you would be looking for in an off-campus lease, some things to make sure that you are asking your landlord, ways to help you calculate budget. All of those tools you can find in our off-campus housing page. Okay. So let's talk about dining. So we have a large cafeteria in the Taubman Center that is, it's pretty expansive. We have 24-hour spaces on both campuses, and we call them extended vending spaces. Essentially what that means is a student would use their ID card to swipe into a large area that has big refrigerators and, kind of rows of food on the walls, and you can kind of, you can build your own protein meals. And then you would take all the ingredients you've chosen, and you can either cook them right in there they've got these super cookers. I don't really know what they are, but you basically say, this is the item I'm putting in here, and it will cook it for you at the time it's supposed to, time and temp it's supposed to. And then, so you can use your meal plan dining dollars in these 24-hour spaces. And then we also have a smallish cafeteria on the Ford campus that's more for kind of quick on the go things like small sandwiches and, like meat and cheese crackers types of thing. So you can find food on campus in those spaces. As I said earlier, meal plans are not required for the Art Center building. They are required for the Taubman Center, and the dining dollar amounts and prices are here on the screen. The last thing on this page anyway, question that we get very often is about security for both of our buildings. And we take safety very seriously on campus. We know that, we are aware of the view of Detroit from from outside of the city. But I will say, on a personal note, I lived downtown with my wife, my dog, my kids, and I felt safe to bring them there. And so, from my perspective, there isn't a higher endorsement than that. As it says here, we're one of the safest colleges on campus. We have 5 checkpoints to get from the outside up into a student room. We have, as it says here, we have 24 hours a day, 7 days a week security staff who are watching the cameras that are all over campus, as well as a person who is doing rounds at all times. We also have guards in both parking structures so that students can feel safe in those spaces as well. So that would be step 1. Step 2 is at the front door of both buildings, students will need swipe access. So your CCS ID card will get you access into the Art Center building front door, as well as the Taubman Center front door. Once you've gotten through those doors, there will always be a guard waiting at the front of both of these buildings as long as students live there. So 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, there will always be a guard posted in front of these buildings. What those guards are looking for is each ID card is colored based on the building you live in. So art ACB students only have access to the ACB, and TC students only have access to the TC. If you want to get into the other building, you need to just sign in as a host, as a guest. So they're looking for that color on the ID that says, I definitely live in this building, but they also want to match the picture ID that's on there to the person holding the ID. So they want to verify that you definitely have access to that building. Once you've gotten past the security guard with your ID, you then need to use your ID again to either access the stairwell or the elevators. Once you've done that, in the Taubman Center, you need to use the scan again to get out of the elevator bay and into the residential side. We don't have that in the Art Center building, but we do have that in the Taubman. And then, of course, each student has a key for entry into their room. So those would be the 5 different spaces. We also have a 24 hours a day, 7 days a week CCS shuttle service that takes you between both buildings. There's usually no longer than about a 12-minute wait. And if at any point you want to go down to the desk and call for it, they'll call the shuttle over for you.
Hey, Ryan, I
Yes.
think the slides are stuck again.
They're stuck again?
No, there we go.
Okay, I wonder if I have to click each time. Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. I'm so very sorry. Okay, so back on track. Talk about the shuttle service. The other thing I want to bring up with safety is if at any point you would like a security escort, you can feel free to either call campus safety or talk to a security guard, and they can call the I think the roaming guard. I don't know what the name of it is, but they'll call a guard to walk you to wherever. So even if it's just to walk across campus, that's what the security guards are there for. They'd be very happy to do that. And we also have the blue buttons around campus, if you're familiar with that. It's just a big blue light that you can hit the button and immediately talk with someone on campus safety. I also want to point out here that we have partnered with the Wayne State University Police. So we do not use the city of Detroit. We use the Wayne State police officers. Those are fully sworn in police officers, and their response time to CCS's campus is typically less than 90 seconds. So if there is some type of emergency where a student needs help, we can get that help for them very quickly. Okay, so here we are. That is about the cut and dry of the very basics of what housing is. Our RA Sydney is going to talk a little bit about what their experience is on campus, also kind of what being an RA means to the student experience. So Sydney, I'm going to turn it over to you, and then we can open up some questions from there.
Thanks, Brian.
Yeah.
So I have nothing but wonderful things to say about CCS. I'm biased because I've had such a wonderful experience here being a student, for one. Everyone starting off the community here is just absolutely amazing. I have never met such kind, accepting, and interesting people. So highly recommend getting to know everyone. We have wonderful on-campus opportunities as well. We have a huge, I work on the student activities board as well. And so we do wonderful events off campus and on campus that are free for all the students. Recently, we took a trip to the Detroit Fly House, which is a circle school, and took aerial classes. That was pretty fun. That was one of my favorite ones that we've done recently. The RAs also, we have a wonderful housing staff, and we are excessively trained in like empathy and everything that you need to know. So it's great to, be a part of it and everything. We're basically here for the students and anyone that lives in the dorms as resources to, refer them to wellness or whatever you need and everything. If you just need help with classes or someone to talk to or, anything like that, that's what we're here for. We also put on events for the residents and any of the students. We've got a smoothie event coming up that's going to be all like smoothies and slime, and it's going to be great. So yeah, it's kind of a little bit about what we do. What else? I'm happy to answer any questions that you have specifically, though. Oh my gosh, Brandy, I just see that you said that you did the classes there yesterday. It was very
I've been taking classes there since 2015. I'm like the biggest Fly House fan.
Really? Oh, that's awesome. I got back and like all of my shoulders were sore. It was wonderful.
Back of your legs, your hands. I got my calluses coming back. That's awesome.
Yeah, that's great. Man.
All right. So did we have any questions that's popping up? I'm gonna take a look over the chat real quick. Can we switch rooms if issues come up? Yeah, so that answer is definitely based on availability. What we typically like to do is, as Sydney kind of talked about earlier, we have kind of a process. So it would be our preference that if an issue pops up, college is a good time to start practicing and learning skills to solve issues rather than move away from the issue. So we, all of our RAs are trained. If you want to go to an RA just to vent, they can help with that. If you want to ask for some, discussion and problem solving techniques, the RAs can help with that. They can go as far as to help mediate a room. If you've really been working through issues at length and it hasn't been solved, then the RA is happy to help facilitate that. If things do continue to go south and it's not a good living environment, that is your first priority is your academic experience. And if your living environment is taking away from that, then we want to help with that with however we can do that. So the long answer is yes, but we would love to try and fix it before we move you away from it. Mm-hmm. Okay.
I see that Rosanna asked if the bus stop was far from the campuses. It's on campus. So there's two stops. One is in the Taubman Center. It's literally right outside of the lobby. And then the other one is right outside of the WB, which is the main building on the Ford campus. So you don't have to actually walk through the Detroit or anything. It's like they're right on campus. So it's very, very convenient.
Yeah, cool.
I don't know. Ryan, do you know the official move-in date for the students?
Oh man, I've been typing this out. I think it's August 28th is for new students. That's my memory. I'll look that up while we're...
Noise complaints. It's basically so quiet hours in both buildings are right after 11 p.m. And so noise complaints is you can call your RAs, and basically what we'll do is we'll ask like, hey, have you talked to them and asked if they can quiet down and everything? If they're like, yes, I've talked to them, they won't do, then the RAs will come over, talk to whoever is being noisy and everything, and work it all out. So.
Cool. All right, so I'm going back just to kind of take a peek at some of these back questions that maybe looking for a little more context. So this one says, is it guaranteed that a room will be full? Are there instances where certain rooms won't fill regardless of size? That has happened. We do have times when rooms haven't filled. What's more common is that we fill our buildings full to capacity, and then throughout the year, students drop So it is possible to have a room with less than capacity, but that doesn't typically happen until the middle of a semester. So that's how I would answer that. Kaylee asked about parking, having a car your first year, and Brandy nailed it. Just parking is free all 4 years for students. It's free. Parking is free overnight for all residential students who bring a car. You just have to go get that pass from security, but that is free of charge. Stephanie asked if I pay the enrollment deposit to enroll at CCS, will it secure a spot in housing for me? It will not. The only way to secure your spot in housing is to go through the ccshousing.roomchoice.com website and complete that process.
Lily asked if they pay the $300 before, if they have to pay the $300 before they can see the available beds, or can they look at the beds now before they pay?
Yes, paying is the last step of the process, and selecting a bed is the second part of the process. So if you look through and don't see what you're looking for, then you can just either shoot me an email and I'll delete your application, or just stop and I'll eventually assume that you abandon it. Yeah, that's a good question. Okay, let me see if I'm... Accommodations for food allergies. I think I'd have to know what your accommodation you're looking for is. So reach out to me and we can talk about it.
Angelica asked if you aren't a residential student, do you have to pay for parking? So if you're a commuter, you can park for free during the day. I don't know what the policy is on overnight parking though.
Overnight parking is free for residential students. And I don't know what the overnight commuting policy is. I think that would be that's a security question. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't
Housing
think
is free.
that generally it would be free for commuters from what I've heard from other students, but I don't think people generally do if you are commuting anyways.
Yeah. Would my friend from Wayne State be allowed with me in the housing facility? Would they need a pass? Yes. So external guests are welcome. They have to be 18 years of age. They will have to sign in at the front desk with state ID. So that can either be a passport or your driver's license or just your state ID. Any of those things will work. Like a Wayne State ID will not work. Has to be officially state. Even if it's got your picture on it, it has to be official state ID or your CCS ID.
Hey, Ryan, quick question to add to that, because you said your guests have to be 18 or older. Is that the case for siblings as well?
Oh, great point. Yes, there is one exception, and it is if you are related and you have filled out the underage guest policy 24 hours before that guest comes. So yes, we do allow siblings, but that needs to be handled ahead of time. Yes. Okay. I think I'm catching up here in the chat. Got the official move-in dates, how to handle noise complaints. Great job, Sydney.
Thank you. I would love to answer Lily's question verbally. So there is no required building for freshmen or anything, but I would love to make a plug for the Taubman Center because it is my absolute favorite building.
Yeah.
So one of the big differences between the ACB and the TC is the community aspects around them. The TC has a lot of community spaces. So like basically in the center of the hallway, you know, it's kind of like a big circle, and in the center we have community rooms, which is something that the ACB doesn't have. And a lot of people enjoy going to the ACB because they have kitchens, but at the TC you can still have air fryers, and you can also have rice cookers along with microwaves, and cook just about anything that you could cook at the ACB in the TC. So just want to put that out there. Plus you get all the community rooms, and people really love the vibes of the TC, especially if you want the tall vaulted ceilings as well and wonderful natural light. So just putting it out there, you should really give it a chance, and you get to know your roommates a lot better and everything because you're living together. So yes, very true, Brandy. They are.
Yes.
We have one RA, Liz DeBrito, who makes curry for all of the staff in their, I think it's either an air fryer or in their rice cooker. It's amazing. They've also made bread and cake. It's wonderful.
Wow. Yeah, I just like to back up what Sydney said. When people ask me, like, what would be my recommendation, I think what Sydney was saying is true. I think the efficiency of the Taubman Center for making friends is higher than it is at the ACB, because I think people gravitate to the public spaces that are very close in the Taubman Center, and you can really get to know a lot of people quickly. And what we find typically is because of the way that apartments are, people stick to their apartments, or maybe their neighbors, but it's people don't do as much exploring as they do in the Taubman Center. So yeah, it's a very efficient way to get to know a lot of people. And there's a lot of research that says the more engaged you are, the more people you get to know, the more you feel a sense of connection with the community around you at campus, the more successful you are. So highly recommend the Taubman Center for first year students.
It's also great because a lot of times we do our programs in those common spaces. So if you didn't know that they were happening and you're just like walking by, you can find free food.
Yes, that's great. Mm-hmm. Any other questions that are popping up? Doesn't seem to be. Let's see, when do you know your roommates? Well, that's a good question. So actually, you know your roommates immediately when you are signing up for your room. You know, if there are already people registered in there, by the time you get to the end, once you've paid, well, when you're picking the bed, you'd be able to see their information first. You'd be able to see their name as well as their demographic information. So you would know at that point. But once you've paid and your application's been approved, your home screen for the Roomchoice page, well, one of the tabs will be Friends. And in the Friends tab, it'll tell you the people that you're living with and their contact information. You can also type their name into our CCS email portal, and it will populate their email address. If you selected an empty room, I joined an empty room before this. Will it update me? So it will not alert you when new people have signed up for your room, but at any point that you want to log into Roomchoice and check the Friends tab, it'll tell you that stays up to date. So you just have to check. Typically, what we find is, like, if someone will sign up, they'll eventually hear from their roommate, and they'll say, "Hey, I just signed up with you. Like, want to get to know you." So yeah, that's what I'd say. I joined an indie bed before this. Yeah.
Teresa asked if there were personal spaces to put anything such as money or any other items away. I don't believe that there are in either of the dorms. Like, I don't know, I haven't found any. But a lot of students will bring like safes or lock boxes if they are concerned about anything like that. I know that I've had one works just fine. So, but normally we don't have too many issues anyways.
Yeah, that's correct. We do not provide anything like that. In the Taubman Center, each room does have some storage space. That's like, there's a ladder in each of the rooms. You can get up high and there's some storage space up top. It's not secure in any way, but you are able to do that. In the pamphlet that one of the things we suggest bringing is either a safe or a trunk or something that you can lock up your personal belongings in. That would be our.
Do we still have on-campus lockers? I know they aren't in the dorm rooms, but do students still have access to those?
Yeah. Sydney, do you know about that process? Have you signed one of those out?
I have never checked out a locker before. I know that you can, but a lot of times it's more for like foundation classes, school supplies.
Yeah, okay, yeah, that makes sense.
So I'd recommend probably bringing some type of like locked box or something above getting a locker, because I think that if you don't want anyone to have access to it too, I think that the foundations department generally has access to all those lockers for safety concerns and everything. Let's see. Jill asked how we facilitate community building on the ACB, the Ford campus. So that'll probably be done through RA programs and then student activity programs as well. So every floor, no matter what housing dormitory you're in, will have a first floor meeting that's mandatory to like talk about all of the, you know, events and like rules and everything of living on campus. But then throughout the year, RAs put on events and like programs, like small ones, and then just community builders that will advertise and have flyers out that you can go to. We'll also have large scale events. Like just last month we had our Century Ball, which was like a big dance. Wonderful, it was Renaissance themed. But so there are constantly events going around on campus. And so there are events that happen specifically for the ACB, but generally those will happen like outside or like, you know, somewhere else on campus just because there aren't those community spaces in the dormitory. But yeah.
The one nice thing that the ACB also has is the outdoor space, the green grass space. So especially when school year starts and as the school year is finishing, there's a lot of opportunity to be outside.
Mm-hmm. We had a really beautiful day. Was it last weekend or was it this past weekend? It was wonderful because we got to see the campus come back to life a little bit after winter, and everyone was outside laying around in the grass and in the sculpture garden. Birds are chirping again. Nice. Yeah. Let's see. Angelica asked if there are rooms in the art center that are still available.
The last time I checked, there is not. That being said, there is such a turnover in where people live on campus between now and the school year starting that anyone who signed up for housing and got themselves in the Taubman Center but really wanted the art center building would be more than welcome to send me an email requesting an ACB switch. I'll put it on my list, and I'd be shocked if we can't accommodate any of those types of requests throughout the summer.
And then Jill also asked if can a student change their room choice? I assume this is based on availability.
Yeah, that's the right answer. Yes, students can change their room. It is based on availability, and it's if a student wants to change their room, they can reach out to either myself, their building coordinator, or their RA, and we can figure out what the issue is and what you're trying to accomplish, and we can show you what we can do to help.
So this is also a smoke-free and a substance-free campus. So I see that Camille asked what the rules on were vaping, et cetera, on the campus and dorms. All that has to happen off campus. We do have smoking areas, like outside of the TC, and I think that the ACB grounds are okay, but like not in the dorms, like that's a no-go.
Correct. We have designated smoking spaces on both campuses. Yeah. But do first-year students need to have a roommate? If they want to live on campus, then yes. We do not have any single spaces available for incoming students.
Ryan, are there any exceptions to that rule for medical or neurodivergence or anything if a student needs a single room if they're an incoming student?
Yeah, so the answer to that is yes. We have an incredibly small amount of singles on campus, and those have all been taken for what you've described. So moving forward, if someone has that type of need, we don't have any more singles, so we would have to figure out what the next step would be.
Thank you.
I put ACB as a preference, but I think I want the TC. Would I need to say that in an email if that? Yeah, all you'd have to do is send me an email. Tell me what you're looking for. Tell me what you're hoping to switch to, and I'll help you find a new spot.
Is that Kaylee that wants to move to the TC? Yeah.
Anne would be thrilled.
I know. I'm going to tell her later. Like, yeah, we got someone coming over here.
So all the single rooms have been taken. Right. We do not have any single rooms available. And so just to give a quick overview, the single rooms on campus are reserved for seniors and MFA students only. and we open those up once we have taken all of our people of unique need. And this year we didn't place any seniors and MFA students; those were all unique need. So as really a standing policy, we just don't really have singles on campus. As it's turning out.
Any more questions? There have been so many amazing questions this evening.
That's been really good.
I know one question was if someone could find the live stream, I just paste it in the chat box, the YouTube link.
Cool.
Also be sending a follow-up email, but if anyone wants to grab that link now so they can watch this information back later, that link is in the chat box.
Cool.
Ryan, Sydney, you both are awesome. Thanks so much for sharing so many insights and so much information about housing at CCS. I see folks in the chat are also saying thank you. So if we don't have any more questions, we can wrap up this evening's webinar presentation. Rosanna, thanks for the claps. We're so glad you all are checking out this information. Hopefully it's getting you excited for this coming fall and joining us on campus. If you all have any questions beyond what was discussed today, feel free to reach out to admissions@collegeforcreativestudies.edu or reach out directly to your admissions counselor so we can support you in the transition to CCS. With that said, thank you all, and I hope everyone has a beautiful night. Bye, everyone.
Goodbye. Thanks for coming.